Hi everyone, I'm Steve and this is Base Reality. And today's episode is about We Are Rocking This. And about 10 years ago, I had an experience where I crossed over. It was a very profound experience. It basically shattered my earth view. And I crossed over to the other side and I started receiving a bunch of information, downloads. I experienced God. I experienced my higher self. I experienced all that is. It was an incredible experience, and I didn't really have much of a background for any of this. I didn't have a context for it. I wasn't religious. I wasn't spiritual. Had a little bit of philosophy, and I was doing very amateur particle physics just to see, because there seemed to be a lot of talk about consciousness interacting with matter. And so that's about all I had. And in this, so as I came back and started to process everything that had happened to me with a new discernment, with a new lens of being able to kind of understand more of the spiritual literature, understand the religious literature, and philosophical literature as well. Um, what I started to notice is that this is sort of like a matrix. That this is a place where we come, sort of like the prodigal son in the Bible. Each of the spiritualities have their different take on it. Buddhism, I think it's the samsara, and in the Hindu tradition, it's the Maya. The Hopi Indians have theirs. Even the quantum physics is now showing the simulation theory. But basically, the idea is that there's a veil that comes over our consciousness. So when we fall, we're not necessarily kicked out. That's not what I was shown. In religion, it shows that we were kicked out and God was pissed and we disobeyed and did all this kind of stuff. What I was really shown is that we wanted to pursue a separation experience from God. So we basically chose this. We weren't punished. We weren't kicked out. We chose to have an experience, to experience duality, good and evil, right and wrong, and to sit on our own throne, to make our own judgments, to make our own definitions and decisions about what we wanted to. Instead of having to run in everything by God, we could do it ourselves. So we had to enter this state of, we'll call it just hiding, playing hide and go seek. And so in this experience, and there's lots of layers to this. So like time, space, material, all of these different things have a reason for existing, and there's sort of layers to keep the illusion going. So there's lots of different layers. It's not just the mind that gets partitioned off, but there's other support that helps us to maintain this illusion of separation. And in this darkness, while we're in this darkness, we really get to experience a lot of dysfunction, disasters, and it's supposedly delightful. I don't know, it doesn't necessarily feel like it while we're going through it, but it's called the delicious discomfort, I think, in A Course in Miracles. And so, and I've heard estimates as high as in the thousands for people reincarnating down here, coming back over and over. So it can be a pretty slow cycle. And I don't know if it's like Inception, like that movie where the lower you go, the slower time goes. But but it kind of feels like that. Maybe there's some other densities. I've seen like each density has like octaves within it, sub-octaves. So maybe lower 3D, you have kind of more slower time as opposed to higher octaves in 3D. Not sure, but basically in this last cycle, there's an upgrade occurring. So there's this movement to higher density. So we're moving through this band of photonic radiation in our galaxy, and it was planned this way. And so after the grand cycle, the people had chosen to be on this timeline where we are now being bombarded with things that are upgrading our DNA, upgrading our consciousness, and all of this other stuff, that's really starting to not only boost our consciousness, but as I said before, the little things that we had, like time, space, all of those things that were meant to assist us in this deception, in this darkness, are starting to fall away too. So it's kind of everything is starting to collapse. And this matrix is starting to collapse. And that means everything's coming out. So all of the stuff, all of the hurt, all of the dysfunction, all of the mental illness, all the physical illness, all the hate, all the fear is actually starting to come out. And that's why these times are so tough right now, because we haven't been really doing our spiritual work. So there was this opportunity for us to sort of, it's like kind of studying for a test. You have this big test, you've got the finals, and you've got a month to study for it, and you just kind of drag your feet and procrastinate. And then we don't end up studying until maybe the night before, or the weekend before, and it's brutal. We're having to take in all of this information, and the brain is just sore, we're tired, and we're really nervous going into this. And that's kind of what's going on with here. I remember when I started one of my first jobs when I was a teenager was working at McDonald's. And when I got there, they wanted me to clean this oven. And this oven looked like it hadn't been cleaned since they bought it, since the store opened. And it was brutal. I mean, it took me a couple days to go through this. And I thought it was kind of a shit job, but I guess I was the low man on the totem pole. So I went through and cleaned it, but took forever. And man, I really wanted to do a good job. And when it was done, it was amazing. That thing was glowing, and people were like, wow. And that's kind of what we're doing with our consciousness, with our world, with each other. We're kind of going through, and it's just really been this crusted on distortion of just bad ideas, terrible beliefs. And so they've become so embedded and so crusted on us that now that we're going through this ascension, all of these things are coming out. It feels really difficult to sort of clean it. We're in there with that brush cleaning, we're doing our shadow work, and we're all kind of doing it together with a very dysfunctional society and with dysfunctional industries and systems and leaders and processes and all of this other stuff. And so it's kind of, we're all doing it all at once. And the reason we're doing it all at once is because the shift we're going through is so dramatic. We're not just going from one civilization to another, like the Greeks, the Romans, on and on. We're literally going to a whole nother disc, a whole nother level where none of these systems can be there. I mean, maybe in the old civilizations, you could kind of drag a system with you and kind of modify it, tweak it a little bit. But because where we're going is so dramatically different, none of these systems are compatible there. They're not in any kind of resonant vibrational harmony with any of the stuff that we're doing. And so that's why it's so dramatic right now, is because we've been procrastinating, and now because we're having to do the entire system. And you're seeing this online, but I'm seeing that, man, I'm actually encouraged. I know that may come as a shock to some people, but when I'm on Twitter, when I'm on Facebook, I mean, there's a lot of base people that are online that are starting to pose counter arguments. You're even starting to see this in the mainstream news, where people are kind of starting to fall away from Democrat, Republican, and things like that if you're in the US, and starting to get more about, I don't care about Republican, Democrat. I just want honesty. I want integrity. I want leaders that care about us. I want working systems, because we look at what's going on in Washington right now, in DC, and in other places too, in the EU, in Australia. I mean, there's a big uprooting of different systems, because we're seeing, in Canada, we're seeing all of these, and Brazil, I think too, we're seeing all of these crazy just cleansing, cleaning, because these systems are so corrupt. And we're starting to see that somewhere on the back end, there seems to be a connection, whether it's Davos or the Council on Foreign Affairs or the Bilderberger groups or whatever the theories are, that there's sort of this shadow government, this shadow energy, this dark energy that kind of sits behind everything. And that's why, you know, during these crises, that the talking points that you see on the news and across the globe are almost like carbon copies of each other. And that's because the reason they're carbon copies is because they're coming from a single point. And that single point is going to all these different countries, to all these different leaders. Now, these leaders and the systems aren't fully in lockstep. So you have some pushback, you have some that fall right into line gleefully. And so it's not completely orderly, and it does seem like this back end is crumbling right now, but you're really starting to see people pushing back. They're not interested in politics. They're just interested in transparency. They're interested in exposure. They're interested in fairness, equality, love, unity, fair systems. And so that's what's going on right now. And I'm seeing a lot of this on social media, in the news, like I said. I really am truly impressed with the changes that are being made. And it's hard to see sometimes, but I know where to kind of look, and I know what kind of signs to look for. And there's massive changes. There's really good changes. And when you think about the people that are causing issues, it's a very small percentage. The amount of us that are really wanting change, that are really wanting love and clarity and honesty and dignity and all of these other things, we're the majority. So this majority is what's really pushing this from behind the scenes. And this small group is still really pushing hard all these narratives. And as you're seeing more people expand into more, you see homosexuality expanding more, you see trans expanding more, you see more interracial couples expanding more, and there's a good group of that, but this tiny parasite, this darkness, is trying to go through and trying to derail the trans movement by trying to really make it just really harsh. Like, you have to do this, like the pushing the pronoun stuff and all of this kind of stuff. Now, there's some people, but I really think that there's a darker energy that's trying to push a lot of this stuff so that people will hate, these non-binary or fluid gender people. Now, granted, some of them are starting to kind of get into some areas that people don't like, but I really feel like same thing with the women's energy. Women's energy is coming up, and it's so powerful. And then you got Hollywood coming in, trying to turn women versus men, turning the women into violent, into these heartless, just mean women like Velma. Ugh, gosh, that's so gross. And and it's not who women are. Women are amazing. They're beautiful. They're loving. They're nurturing. And they can be powerful as well. And so there's this just little dark energy that's trying to put a spin on all of these things that are slowly rising, that are increasing, that are coming out. So, but I'm seeing a lot of people pushing back. And so this is the time of cleaning. And I believe truly that we are rocking this. So hang in there. I know these are tough times. I love you all, and take care. Thank you.